This lesson is lesson 4, which is surface area of composite objects. Okay, we are going to start with some more complicated shapes. So we have find the surface area. I'm going to cross this piece out here. We're just going to use pi. Need to get used to using it. Okay, so we're just going to use pi anytime it says pi. So I can see that I have two cylinders stacked on top of each other. So now that we have been dealing with cylinders for a few days, I'm going to simplify our cylinders to a formula. Now, if you have been paying attention, you've probably noticed this formula develop as well. So the surface area of the big cylinder is what we're going to find first. Always come up with a method for how you are going to solve. So I'm going to show you two methods here. The first one says find the total surface area of both cylinders, then subtract the overlap. And then method number 2 is consider the overlap beforehand and only calculate what you need. So let's start with finding the area of both cylinders and then do method number 1 and subtract the overlap. So the formula for the surface area of a cylinder is 2 pi r squared, which represents the area of the circles, right? Circle number 1 on the top, circle number 2 on the bottom, plus 2 pi RH. Now, if we think about what the rectangle was made out of in our cylinder when we laid out the net, it was the circumference multiplied by the height. So here, the 2 pi r represents the circumference, and then the h represents the width of a rectangle, which was the height of our cylinder. So let's go ahead and apply this. 2 pi times my radius of my big one. Now my radius of my big one isn't given to me because I need to use the radius, which is half of the diameter. So I'm going to take 9 and divide it by 2, which is 4.5, and square it. That's 2 pi times the radius again, so 4.5 again, times the height, which is 11. Okay, so now, depending on what type of calculator you have, you're going to do bed math. So 4.5 has to be squared first, which is 20.25. And then we're going to add it to 2 times pi times 4.5 times 11. Now that I've done my exponents, I can move on to my next thing in bed math, which is going to be multiplication. So I'm going to do both of these at once. I'm going to do 2 pi times 20.5, 2 times pi times 20.25, which is 127.2345. Remember not to round too much until the final answer. And then I'm going to do my second multiplication, 2 times pi times 4.5 times 11, which gives me 311.0176. So then my final step here is to add those two numbers together. I don't think I mentioned what to add, what to round to, so if I don't say rounding to the nearest tenth is always a good idea, but remember we don't want to round until our final answer. So at this point, I'm going to leave it as 438.25217. Okay, so that is the surface area of my large rectangle, or sorry, my large cylinder. So here it is here. Okay, so we are part of the way there. Now I need to find the surface area of my small cylinder. So surface area of my small, it's going to be the exact same formula, so I don't have to write it down again. So I'm going to start with my substitutions. Once again, I have to take my diameter and divide it by 2. And the height has also changed to 6. Okay, so 2 times pi times 4 is 2 squared. And then I am going to multiply, get 25.1327 for the first multiplication. And the second multiplication, 2 times pi times 2 times 6, is 75.398. So my last step is to add those together. Okay, so granted, if I didn't make any mistakes on my calculator, the answer will be 100.5309 for the surface area of my small cylinder. So now what I need to do is I need to add those together, but I need to subtract the overlap. So let's think about what the overlap is in this case. It's going to be where my two cylinders touch. So my overlap, I will highlight it in pink, is these two circles. Now, if you think about it, not only are we taking off one circle, which is from the bottom of the small cylinder, but we're also taking a circle off of the top of the big cylinder. So we have to subtract 2 pi r, two circles there. So let's go ahead and start plugging some numbers in. So our total surface area is going to be the area of our large one, which was 438.25217, plus the area of our small one, and then subtract 2 pi r squared, where that is the overlap. So I'm going to add those two numbers together, 438.2521 plus 100.5309, and I get 538.783. And then I'm going to subtract 2 times pi times, now I'm going to sub in, my radius of the overlap is 2 squared. Oh, I think we already found this number. If I look up above, 2 pi times 2 squared was right here where I just highlighted. So I can subtract 25 from my answer. So 538.783 minus 25.1327. And that will give me my final surface area. Rounding to the nearest tenth, I get 513 point, ooh, tough one to round, I got 0.65. So the 5 is going to push the 6 up to the 7. And my units are centimeters squared because we are still dealing with surface area. So that's how you do method number 1. Method number 1 is a good one to stick to because it's consistent and it doesn't require quite as much understanding of the formulas as method number 2. So for method number 2, you're going to consider the overlap and only calculate what you need. So what that means is we know that purple that I highlighted, that's what I have to take away. So if I don't add it in the first place, I don't have to take it away. So essentially I would use my formulas and I would find the surface area of the large one, which is we already found to be 438. I would add the 2 pi times 2 times 6, the yellow that I'm highlighting here, to that number, and I would also get the same answer. So if that is something you'd like to pursue, I will work with you a little bit more, but for now we're just mainly going to stick with method number 1 since I'm not there. Okay, let's try example number 2. I notice right away that we're not dealing with cylinders anymore. We are dealing with rectangular prisms. So it says find the surface area, use the method of your choice. We're going to stick to method number 1. So I have two shapes here. Both of them are rectangular prisms, but I notice that the big one has side lengths of 50, which makes this one a cube. I'm going to find the surface area of the big one, which is the cube, surface area of the big one. And once again, I'm going to start pulling out some formulas here. So we know that we need to find the area of all 6 sides of a rectangular prism and add them together. In the case of this cube, every single side is the same, right? It's all a square with side length of 50. So we have 6 of those. So I'm going to use the formula of 6LW. And I could actually simplify it even further because the L and the W are both the same number. So 6 times 50 times 50 will give me the surface area of the cube, which is 15,000. Okay, so now let's find the surface area of the small rectangular prism. When we have done this over and over again, you guys have gotten really good at drawing out all the faces, which is fantastic. Maybe you've recognized a formula by now. The formula is 2LW plus 2LH plus 2HW. So essentially what that is doing the same thing that you guys were doing by looking at, you know, the top, the bottom, the side, and the front and the back, but it's written in a formula. So if I set one of these equal to my length, let's see here. So the 20 is going to be my height. The 10 will have that be the width, which makes the 40 the length. Now I'm going to use that formula to sub in. So 2 times L, L is 40, times W, which is 10. 2 times L, which is 40, times the height, which is 20, plus 2 times H, which is 20, times the width, which is. So when I calculate these, I am going to do them all individually. 2 times 40 times 10 is 800. 2 times 40 times 20 is 1600. And 2 times 20 times 10 is 400. Okay, so my last step to find the surface area of the small one is 800 plus 1600 plus 400, which will give me my surface area. Okay, I get the final surface area. To be 2,800 or 2,800. Okay, so I have now figured the area of my small, figured the area of my large. I need to find out what I need to subtract. So let's highlight it here. It's going to be this gray shaded portion, which looks like it's the rectangle. It looks like it's a rectangle of the height times the width. So let's go ahead and find our final answer. We have to find the surface area of our cube, our large cube, which was 15,000, add it to the surface area of our small rectangular prism, and subtract the overlap. The overlap in this case is a rectangle, and we're subtracting not only from the big one, but from the small one, so 2LW. So if I look at that, what I need to subtract is 2 times 10 times 20. So 2 times H times W, which I already did and found out that that was 400. So I'm now going to take that number and subtract it from my addition of my other areas. So oops, I dropped a 0 here. 15,000 plus 2,800 minus 400. 17,400 centimeters squared. Okay, we have one more to do today, which is find the surface area. Now we have different shapes. We have a rectangular prism and a triangular prism. So kind of combining everything that we have learned so far. So once again, I'm going to stick to method number 1. So I'm going to find the area of my rectangular prism. I'm going to find the area of my triangular prism. I'm going to add them together and then I'm going to subtract the overlap. So my formula for area of a rectangular prism is 2 times LW, 2 times HW, plus 2 times LH. I'm going to identify which one is which. So it looks like my height is 8.1. I can tell that because of this line here and this line have to be the same distance. So I'm going to set that equal to h. This here is going to be my width, and my width and my length just happen to be the same number. I'm going to stick to my formula, but be aware that you could do 4 times 16.1 times 8.1. Okay, 2 times L is 8.1, times my width of 16.1, plus 2 times H, which was 8.1. Oh, I put it in the wrong one. Let's try this again. So my L is 16.1 for that. I put it in as 8.1. Okay, my height is 8.1 times my width, which is 16.1, plus 2 times L, which is 16.1, times H, which is 8.1. Okay, so go ahead and start this. Okay, so 2 times 16.1 times 16.1 is 518.42. Next one, 2 times 8.1 times 16.1 is 260.82. And then we've got a repeat of that. Okay, adding those numbers together. I have a surface area of 1,040.06 for my rectangular prism. I am now going to start finding the surface area for my triangular prism. So this one, there's not a great formula for it, so I'm going to break it down by shapes again. So I can see that I have 2 triangles, a top triangle and a bottom triangle. It looks like the dimensions on here, I'll do my best to draw it in here, are 17.1 for the height and 16.1 for the base. So we can calculate the areas of those 2 triangles by using our area of a triangle formula, which is base times height divided by 2. But then because there are 2 of these triangles, I'm going to multiply it by 2. And remember that multiplying by 2 and dividing by 2, that those are going to cancel each other out. So we're just going to be left with base times height for the areas of the triangles. So 16.1 times 17.1 is going to give me the area of the triangles to be 275.5 3, 1. Okay, we're getting there. Now I am going to look at the rectangles. So when I look at this, at first glance, I think that two of the rectangles are going to be the same. And I'll show you which two rectangles are going to be the same. This yellow one here, as well as, that side over there. Those ones are going to be the same. So let's go ahead and calculate the area of those using the method that we learned last class. So it looks like that one is 18.5 times 8.1, and there's two of them. So the area is going to be 2 LW, which is equal to 2 times 8.1 times 18.5. Okay, so 2 times 8.1 times 18.5 is 299.7. Okay, and then I have one rectangle left to calculate. I will attempt to do it in, well, it turned red pink. Okay, so that red pink shape there, that's my rectangle that I haven't done yet. So the dimensions on that are going to be 8.1, and I have to go up to see that number, 16. So area equals length times width. Equals 8.1 times 16.1, which is 130.41. So I now have all of these different faces. I can add them together to get the area of my triangle. So 275 is the area of my triangles, plus 299 is the area of two of my rectangles, and then 130 was the area of my last rectangle. Okay, so let me make sure I have this right. 275.31 plus 299.7 plus 130.41 gives me an surface area of my triangle of 705.42. Okay, so let's think about this. We have now figured out the surface area of our rectangle. That was 1040. We figured out the surface area of our triangular prism. So we are going to add those together and then subtract the overlap. So I'm going to label total SA, which stands for total surface area. And then I'm going to start adding those together. So 1040.06, 705.42, and then I need to subtract the overlap. So the overlap is where those two shapes are touching, which happens to be a rectangle of 2 times L times W. And it also happens to be a rectangle of something that we've already figured out, but we only figured out one of them. So this one here, I think, was the area of the overlap. So I need to take that 130.41 and multiply it by 2. So I'm going to add those other numbers together right now just because I'm running out of space. I'm using my finger to write right now and it doesn't work the best. So I get 1745.48 for the surface area of both those shapes combined without the overlap taken off. Then we're going to subtract 2 times 130.41. Okay, so I did all of that on my calculator and I got the final answer of 148.1484.66. So we're going to round to 0.7. And then just scrolling up, my units were kilometers originally, so my final units are going to be kilometers squared.